telling you that this is being recorded. All right, any questions about the basics of the Teams meeting? Please feel free to come off mute if you have any questions. Nope. Okay, cool. All right, well, I'll stop sharing. And what I'm going to do now, before I dive deeper into all about 365, I'm going to get you now to come off mute and introduce yourselves. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll pull the list of people up, and I think I've got quite a few of you in here. So I'm sure some of you are in a room as groups, so we can see Mitcham girls there, for example, in a room. We can also see Kulunga are there in a room. Feel free to, when we address the room, then, you can all sort of say hi and everything. So why don't we start with the School of Languages? There's a couple of you from the School of Languages, so why don't we get those guys to come off mute, say hi and what they're doing here and why they're here. So we'll start with you, Eri. You'll need to come off mute.
Oh, hi, this is Eri. I teach Japanese. Our school start introducing team here, so that's why I'm here to learn stuff about.
Okay, very good. And I think you guys were in the last group that came through our school transformation program. So you guys are sort of overflow from the last time. So welcome. And I'm not even going to try to say your name. Moi Jo, I think is how you might say it. But you want to come off mute and say hi?
Hi.
Do you want to tell us about yourself?
I'm also like Eri, a part of the transition team at School of Languages. So I'm just here to just learn a little bit more about how Microsoft work and how I can use that with my class next year. All
right, cool. Welcome. Thanks very much. Let's try Panola. So you guys can start to go through. It looks like you guys, a lot of you are working from home. Come off mute one at a time and just tell us about the school, and then you can all introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Anna Copping. I'm principal of Panola Primary. We're a foundation to Year 7 school, about 180 students, and I think I'm speaking for everyone here. That's why we're in the newbie session, is that we're looking to upskill and really looking at how we can incorporate Microsoft 365 in our school effectively.
Excellent. So the rest of you guys want to say hi?
Hi.
No, you need to come off mute and you need to say hi. You just tell us who you are and what you teach. That's enough.
Julianne Williams. I'm the STEM teacher, foundation to Year 7.
Stacey Marlowe, 3-4 teacher.
Stacey Walters. I'm the Japanese ICNIC teacher.
Fee Halberton. I'm the just a classroom teacher.
Carmel Finch, I'm the Wellbeing and Intervention Coordinator.
Tony, you going to come off mute and say hello? No, he says. Okay, fair enough. All right, cool. Let's try Mitcham Girls High.
All right, let's do a sound check here. Can you hear us? Cool. We just logged into a new Mac in our editing suite. So Simon Brooks.
If you say a new Mac, I'm going to remove you from the meeting. Hold on.
Sorry, it's a.
I'm joking. Keep going.
I had no choice in this product, Troy. So you're throwing me now. I'm Innovative Teaching and Learning Coordinator and teach all the technology subjects here at Mitcham Girls. So, and we've got Caroline and Shauna here who are pretty much new to the school and really keen to see what happens with, I guess, the new office stuff and yeah, start to push the boundaries with it at Mitcham. So, yeah.
Very good. So that's all of you guys?
Yeah.
Mitcham? Yeah, cool. Okay. So who else have we got? What other schools? Corn area? Am I saying it right?
You are correct, Troy, yes. I'm Andrew Gilson-Reid. I'm the principal of Corn Area School, and we're here really to make sure we're connecting all of our technology and really exploring the full potential rather than just using the very bottom 10%, which unfortunately we often slip into. With me,
I'm Farouk, teaching mathematics and science here, and I'm looking forward to learn few interesting aspect of Microsoft 365, which I can incorporate in my lessons.
Cool. And that's it from your school?
Yep.
All right, excellent. What about Golden Grove? We've got got a few from Golden Grove, do we? Or is it just the one? So we've got David from Golden Grove. Nope. David's feeling shy. Okay, what about, is it Kalunga? Is that how I say that?
That is how you say that. How are you, Troy?
So do you guys, do you want to introduce yourselves? You're back on mute. You're back on mute, we can't hear.
You got us, champ?
Yep, go for it.
Yep, Kalunga Primary School. We're out of 6 and we've got a room of 6.
Okay, so you want to tell us who you are and what you teach?
Ronnie Alderman, right across the board, same with all of us. We're a small staff and keen to learn about the apps.
All right, sounds good.
Cheers.
Okay. Anybody else that I haven't pulled off mute?
Yep. My name's Lorena Pallone. I'm from Northcote High School. I am the science faculty leader there and also a learning specialist there. We're rolling out Microsoft 365 this year, and I'll have a big role in that within the science faculty, but also within the broader school. So I need to learn more about it to see how we can effectively use it in our classroom.
Cool, welcome. So are you I think you're our only Victorian besides myself?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we opened this up for Department of South Australia Education Department as well as Victorian Education Department. Looks like South Australia has a little bit more money set aside for teacher release, I should say, whereas Victoria, and plus, to be honest, as you can imagine, for us in Victoria, we've been doing webinars until they came out our nose. So maybe that's another reason. But welcome, good. So we have two Victorians, myself and Lorena. Now, the other thing, guys, to remember too, while I'm on that point, is that we are going to be thinking in terms of Victorian time. All right, so anything that I say to you, just take half an hour off, and that'll be the time, yeah? But I'm sure you're used to it. Anybody else? No?
I'll say hello. I'm from the School of Languages, but I missed the earlier introduction. I actually joined on my phone in the car because I was doing a kindy drop-off. But yeah, the School of Languages is transitioning to everything Microsoft Teams, and like Eri and myself are part of a committee that we're doing the advanced training first, and then we'll be supporting our staff members to move everything over to Teams for next year. Excellent.
Well, welcome. And I think there was another person from your school that we also didn't get to say hi to. But that's cool. All right, guys. Well, that sounds really good. So what we're going to do today, for us here, it's now 10 to 10. So we're going to break at 11. Okay, so 10:30 South Australian time. We'll break at 11 my time. As a matter of fact, I will tell Alexa to do that now. Alexa, set a timer for 11 a.m.
Alarm set for 11 a.m.
Okay, good. So now we won't forget. I'm going to share my screen with you all again, and I'm going to take you through my slides. So just give me a moment to do that. Okay, so we've learned a little bit about each other. I hope you enjoyed it. It's good to actually get a sense of who everybody is and what they're all doing and that kind of thing as well. This is our Microsoft mission statement. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. The culture of Microsoft has shifted in the last number of years, probably in about the last 8 to 10 years, where if you think about Microsoft, when you think about some of the other players, when you think about Apple, when you think about Google, they tend to have a lot more of a dare I say, a sexy image. Whereas Microsoft really has this sort of, you know, it's business, it's, you know, and our emphasis is we want to make the customer sexy, not Microsoft, right? So it's all about helping you to achieve more. And that really is our focus as an organization. And so in Microsoft Education, when I first came for the interview for this job 4 and a bit years ago, I remember thinking, oh yeah, you know, what's Microsoft got to say about education? Oh, we'll see. You know, I was just sort of interested in the possibility of the job. And Microsoft had a lot to say about education and the culture of education, etc. So, you know, I hope as we go through today, you're going to see a lot of that, and hopefully, you know, there's going to be a bit of a spark in terms of the possibility of what you can do. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you is if possible, and it is entirely your choice, but I'd ask you to leave your camera on, because whilst you're looking at the screen, I can still see you guys on a second screen, and it just helps me to see the reaction and the responses of people. So, of course, entirely your choice, but I'd really love it if you could leave your camera on for me. That would be helpful. Okay, I'm going to show you a little video here. Let's let that load.
Troy, I can't actually see the video. I can hear it, but I can't see anything.
Can everybody else see the screen? See the video?
I can see the screen, but it's really laggy.
Yeah, it will be because we're coming across a Teams call. Yeah, but you can see it. Yep. Okay. Cool.
With our new implementation of Windows 10, I'm able to do re-imaging without the need for the IT department to intervene. That's a big win.
I can be the first generation in my house to get a college degree.
Azure saves me 2 days of work configuring the server. So instead, we can focus on studying our data and asking the interesting questions.
Microsoft allows us to make daily and weekly adjustments on the fly, which allows us to be proactive rather than reactive. We're literally changing the trajectory of students' lives.
All right, so that's not intended to make you want to buy shares or anything, but it just gives you a little bit of a sense of what's going on in this space. So you guys can see my screen again? Should say lasting impact, yep. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about the program that, except for the School of Languages, the program that your school has entered, which is called the School Transformation Program. Originally it was called TuneUp. So some South Australian schools and Victorian schools have done this before, but as I said, being called TuneUp. I wanted to, because what we were doing at Microsoft is we're running a lot of workshops and we're doing, you know, teacher training and this kind of stuff. And when I first stepped into role, a number of years ago, I was aware that a lot of what I know as a teacher, and in terms of background, I am a former teacher, 16 years in schools and 20-something years in education. And when I stepped into role, I was thinking everything that I have learned about professional development and what works for schools, we're not doing it very well at Microsoft, right? We're doing a sort of a more traditional workshop model. And I wanted to look at something that was going to have more lasting impact and was going to be more useful for schools. And so, knowing what we know about professional development, and this list that I'm about to share with you is not in any way a complete or exhaustive list. But there are some things that are basically, there's a consensus to say this is what professional development looks like, or this is what research tells us good professional development looks like. And that is that it is intensive and includes follow-up and on-site support for teachers, right? So there can be an intensive moment, but then it has to continue on with the learning for teachers. The learning has to be active. It has to include practice, feedback, and time for reflection as well. It utilises the expertise of teachers in schools and departments. It cultivates leaders, involves teachers in the planning, and it provides structures that facilitate collaboration among teachers both within and across the schools. So we built this thing, which I said was called Tune Up, and is now called the Microsoft School Transformation Program. And it is a whole school professional development program. So we run a leaders workshop, okay, where leaders come together and they build if they haven't already, they're invited to begin building a digital strategy for the school, and they get to see that sort of high level, bigger picture of what digital transformation can look like. We run a middle leaders course, which we call the eLearning Leaders Institute, where teachers come along for 2 days and then they do a project which they take back to their school. We also run a IT Pros Day, a couple of hours for IT pros, which show them, what it is that they need to do to switch things on to make it all working well in your school. Because oftentimes teachers would come to our workshops, they go back and they would hit a brick wall with IT who didn't get it. And, why do you need this turned on? I'm not turning it on. And so we basically realized that we needed to speak to them as well. And then the other one that we do, which is the student support teachers. So we have this thing called the inclusive classroom. So student support teachers, learning aides, professionals, right? People like speechies, OTs, they're welcome to come along as well. And we talk about how the technology can be used to improve teaching and learning for the kids that need that extra support, right? So it's the technology that you already own. So we're not looking at special technology, we're looking at features within the Microsoft stack that can support students. We also run this one, which is a Discover Microsoft 365 Day. We didn't used to run this, but a lot of people would come back and say, oh, it's too high level. I come in and I don't know the basics. So we made this an optional day. And then there's also been announced an optional Minecraft Day as well, which will be happening in May. So if you haven't heard about that, please reach out to South Australia. You can reach out to Cindy and Trudy if you don't already have their contact details. Please speak to your principal, who should have them. And then Melbourne, Lorena, you can reach out to Lauren Arkley from the department. I'm happy to help you with that as well. So that's what that all looks like, all right? So that's what you're a part of. You are a small part of a bigger picture, right? A small piece. So this is very sort of workshoppy. I won't pretend that it's not. We're going to go through some of the basics, etc. But please understand that, the leaders are doing strategy stuff. The middle leaders are going to be doing projects and rolling out stuff into the school, and you're a part of something much bigger. And so that was where we wanted to have that lasting impact. Now, what happens is you can do the school transformation program as a school, and that's the end of it. You can take that and say, thanks very much. That's fantastic. But if you want to, you can then take the steps towards becoming what's called a Microsoft Showcase School. And there's all sorts of benefits, etc. But it's also quite rigorous in terms of nominating yourself and being accepted and all that kind of thing as well. So again, I just wanted to give you the bigger picture and let you know that you're a part of something. Any questions about that? Feel free to come off mute. Nope. Okay, cool. Chatty bunch. All right. So I'm going to talk to you really quickly about what technology looks like in the Australian curriculum. Victoria, it's a little bit different because what they did, they still have the digital technologies curriculum, but they took out the ICT general capability, right? So New South Wales, South Australia, other places that use their own curriculum based on the Australian curriculum will still have these two differentiators. But Victoria, we took this out because the idea was that it's supposed to be implied across the whole curriculum anyway, right? But nevertheless, it's still a good point for people in Victoria to see how it's different. So what I want you to do is, and please feel free to not know, but have a go anyway. I want to see if anybody knows the difference between, or can enunciate the difference between the digital technologies curriculum and the ICT general capability. Someone want to have a crack? Lorena's already shaking her head saying no. That's all right, you're from Victoria, you don't have to know.
I can give you a crack if you would like, Troy. But I just want to preface this by saying I'm actually still pre-service, so I haven't taught any of these. Digital technologies as a curriculum subject is much more around digital problem solving and data and the actual teaching of the knowledge and understanding, and then the processes of how to use, you know, information and data and things like that. The ICT general capability is, yeah, kind of implied that almost across any of the learning areas within the curriculum. There's this understanding that once you move through the curriculum, you'll be able to effectively use technology and ICTs to achieve many different things, generally for basically prepare you for work and life.
Yeah, good one. Okay, cool. Does anyone else want to add anything or disagree? Okay, I'm going to get you to raise your hand if you really don't know. So raise your digital hand so you can hover over the screen there. Cool, we've got one. A couple of people don't know, that's okay. So if you do know, why don't you have a crack and explain it to us?
Oh, there we go. So the way that we explain it here at Mitcham is, I guess, the digital technologies which we have as part of our 7, 8 and 9 technology subjects. So in 7 and 8, it's a semester subject, which is sort of spread across, but digital technology is what we say is it's creating with it, whereas I guess the ICT is more generally, I guess, using it within your day-to-day teaching and learning, I guess. So, yeah.
All right, cool. Someone else?
Very, very basically, ICT general capabilities are more just the basic skills that you should have, and digital technologies is applying those skills to problem solve and create.
Okay. Good. I'm gonna add to that, right? And just like what you guys said was great, but I just want to clarify a little bit as well. Digital technologies is a dedicated subject, okay? Just like we have curriculum for English, curriculum for science, curriculum for maths, digital technologies is a standalone curriculum. And also digital technologies, whilst a lot of you were talking about things like design thinking and etc., and that's all very true, just to clarify and simplify, over here in digital technologies, this is where you learn about robotics, this is where you learn about coding, this is where you learn about stuff that's going to possibly lead on to some sort of career in digital technologies, all right? Whereas this one over here, and you guys were very, very clear with this is more spread across the curriculum, all right? So it's using technology regardless of where you are. And it's, you know, it's general life skills, you know, that we kind of all need. So when we look at the ICT general capability, we can see there it says things like applying social and ethical protocols and practices when using ICT, all right? So the emphasis here is the social and ethical protocols, not so much the ICT. Here we have managing and operating the ICT, but still we still have, someone said before about the digital technology is more about creating. No, the ICT capability is also about creating, but it's not so much creating things like coding and robotics and electronics and that kind of stuff. We can be creating anything. We could be creating, you know, drama scripts. We could be creating, you know, videos that are explaining some sort of scientific principle. It doesn't matter. It's also communicating, and then it's also investigating. All right. Now, the reason I'm drawing this to your attention is because what this course is about, this Discover Office 365 or Discover Microsoft 365, and really by and large, the majority of the school transformation program is about this. Okay. It's not so much about digital technologies, coding, robotics, you know, programming and that kind of thing as well. We will certainly touch on bits and pieces of that, but it's more about spread across the whole school. Does that make sense? Yep. David, you've still got your hand raised. Did you have a question, or you just forgot to put your hand down? Now, David, yeah, okay. So, and David, you're on mute, by the way, if you were talking to us. Okay. So let's keep moving. So let's start by talking about Microsoft 365. And as you can see already, I really am going to treat this like a class. I really do want your engagement, okay? There's going to be times where I'm going to talk at you for extended periods, but I'd really like you guys to, as much as possible, come off mute. Now, you've probably heard of Office 365. It's just recently been rebranded as Microsoft 365. So when if I do lapse back into, and it's quite a recent change, if I do call it Office 365, please understand that it's pretty much the same thing. But Microsoft 365 is just a little bit broader than Office. It's also about devices. It's also about device management. It's not just about Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and those kinds of things. So I'm just going to take you through very quickly through this. Please don't feel that you need to master any of this, because we are going to unpack this slowly as we go through the day. But we have three main pillars that we talk about when we talk about education or Microsoft in the education space. We talk about what we've got for students. We have tools for increased reading and language skills, which we are not going to unpack today, but you can do that if you come into our inclusive classroom workshop. And I promise you the stuff that we've got is phenomenal, and the fact that people don't know about it is really sad. Talking about that digital technologies curriculum, there's our STEM stuff over here. So we have things like Minecraft Education Edition, which everybody in Victoria and South Australian departments have access to. We'll talk about that a little bit today. We have a coding language, which is called MakeCode, and we also have a series of STEM curriculums available, which is called Hacking STEM. And then we also talk about preparing students for the future skills they need in work and life. So things like Office 365, you know, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc., and what's going on with Microsoft Teams. When we talk about teachers, we want to save teachers time with tools for planning and assignments communication. So Teams, OneNote, and things like Forms, which we will have a look at all three of those over the course of today. We want to increase the student independence and engagement. So we want to use tools to better engage the students. And then we also talk about our professional development. So improving collaboration and teamwork in the classroom, but also around the world. So we have the Showcase School program, which we just talked about a moment ago. We have the Microsoft Educator Community, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. And we also have our Champions program called the MIE, Microsoft Innovative Educator Experts, which hopefully you'll want to join. When it comes to schools, this is more at a department level. Okay, so well, this is, I guess this can be at a school level about affordable choices for devices. We have premium devices, which are going to cost thousands. We also have lower end devices, you know, for around $500 and $600, that kind of stuff as well. But then what happens is at a department level, the department is managing your security, managing the devices through imaging, etc. We have a thing called School Data Sync, which was where where Microsoft applications can talk to your school information systems. And then we have things like Azure Active Directory and security and all that kind of stuff, which the departments have paid for, and you really don't need to worry about that. It's all there and it's all operating very, very well. Okay. So now what I'm going to get you to do, virtual hands or otherwise, or real hands, I want you to pop your hand up if you use Office daily. Yep, great. Lots of hands there. Exactly right. Come off mute and tell me, what do you use the most? When you think of Office, what app do you use the most?
Word, Excel, and PowerPoint.
OneNote and Word.
Yep. Stacey Walters, you're on mute then if you want to come off mute and say that again.
Publisher, Word, OneNote, and PowerPoint.
Word and OneNote mainly, and Publisher and PowerPoint as well, but mainly Word and OneNote.
Word and OneNote and PowerPoint, definitely.
Outlook, email.
Good one, Caroline. I was about to say, and you're all showing your age because you're not thinking of Outlook, right? Because most of us, when we started using Office, there was no Outlook, and that's actually what you use the most, believe it or not, right? So that's going to be the Office application that you use the most. Now, the thing about Office is this stat that I'm about to share with you. As far as the world and people that are using technology, right? So not the entire world, people that are using technology in business. There is a 99.7% saturation rate of Microsoft Office in business, all right? So 99.7. So that means that when it comes to using other platforms like Google Suite, you can remember there was things like WordPerfect and Lotus Notes and all these other things. Basically, Microsoft has the saturation in that. Now, there is a version of Office that came out in 2018. Just to confuse us, it's called Office 2019. And as far as Office with a date after it, right? There was Office, some of us will remember Office 97, but there was Office 2010, Office 2013, Office 2016, and then Office 2019. And a lot of you are probably using Office 2016. If I was to get you to go in and check, some of you will be using 2019, and some of you are going to be using an even better version, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But that's the Office that we know and love, right? So Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. Now, what happened a little while ago, probably about 10-ish years ago, was Google started doing something very cool, very innovative. They started using the browser, and they started having a version of Office, which back then was just called Google Docs. And they started to spread that out into Google Sheets, which is like Excel. There's also Google Slides, which is like PowerPoint, etc. And it was up in the cloud, and we were able to collaborate. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was blown away. I was like, this is fantastic. Why would I ever need to buy Office again? But those of us that are using those products know that you still need to buy Office because we're still limited by what's available through the browser and the network and online, right? So those products don't do everything that Office does, right? But just like Apple and Samsung leapfrog each other every time there's a new release, it wasn't long before Microsoft cottoned on to the fact that if we're going to compete, we need to be in the cloud as well. So we came up with what's called Office 365. And so we've got Office Online, we've got, PowerPoint Online, Word Online, all these kinds of things as well. Where we have the advantage though, and still, is that we've got both. So you've got this full version of Office that you know and love, and you've also got the option of using the cloud-based or the browser-based stuff as well. Now, our browser-based stuff, just like Google, we are limited by the browser technology and limited by the network. So this is not going to do everything that this can. And for what it's worth, as technology improves, this is now doing things that this doesn't. Okay, but where we have the advantage is you get the choice. Some contexts are going to call for Office, fully installed traditional software like we're used to, and other contexts are going to call for cloud-based. And what's good about what we do is that this talks to this, okay? And so you can be switching back and forth and you have the choice, all right? And I can say unashamedly that the Office 365 in the cloud experience is almost identical to Google. And there's some things that they do better, and there's some things that we do better, but give it a few months or a year or whatever, and then it starts to, there's parity. We catch up with what they do, they catch up with what we do, and on we go. And you may have heard that may have heard planes flying over my house, but you may have heard that Facebook are moving into this space up here as well. They've got a thing called Facebook Work. Dropbox have also started to put out some productivity software. And so whilst we have a saturation down here, there's still an arms race going on up here. Okay, so there's still a lot of competition going on. But again, the biggest strength is the fact that this imitates this and you can switch backwards and forwards. All right, now what the department have done, both departments, is they have purchased for you a version of Office, which is called Microsoft 365 Apps. Okay, it's called Microsoft 365 Apps. Now, in a moment, I'm going to help you find out which version of Office that you've got installed on your local machine. But I want to stress to you, what happens with Office 2019 and 2016, etc., is they never mature in terms of features. In other words, Office 2016, Office 2019 will do exactly the same things that they could do when you first installed them, when you first bought them, when they were first released. Okay, whereas this version, Microsoft 365, this is a subscription version, which means every time there's a new feature update, it is rolled into here and it constantly matures and constantly grows. So in other words, the day after this was released, 2019 was released, this was already better. Okay, and this is the one that the department has bought for you. Okay, and we're going to talk about how to find out which one you're using and how to install it in a minute. Now, the cool thing about this as well is that the department has, look at this, paid for you to have 5 free copies. Now, I'm guessing you've probably got 1 work machine. Some of you may have 2, but most of you have only got 1 work machine. So that means that you've got 4 more free copies. What are you going to do with them? You can put them on your home machine. You can give them to members of your family who live in your house and install it on their machines as well. You're not breaking any department rules or any Microsoft rules at all. We're not talking about giving them usernames and passwords and letting them into your LearnLink or Edumail space. What we're saying is you're going to be able to install software on their devices and then they can continue to use it. Every student and staff member in the department has access to this. So my wife, when she was working in the department, had 5 free copies of Office. My 2 kids are in department schools, had 5 free copies of Office. I was working in the department, I had 5 free copies of Office. So that's 20 copies of Office, and I didn't know that I had one of them. So no more need for anybody to go down to Harvey Norman or JB or even Kmart and buy a subscription to Microsoft 365 because the department has bought it for you and you have full access to that. So how do we find it? How do we find out which one we've got? Let's look at which one we've got first. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open, and you can open anything from Word, all right, but I'm just going to open, anything from Office. I'm just going to open Word because it's nice and easy. I'm in dark mode, which is the way I operate. But when you come into Word, if it opens the document right away, then you can come back to File. Okay, so you can come back over here. Sorry, this is in dark mode, but you can click on File. And when you come into File, then you come down to Account. All right. And mine says Subscription Product, Microsoft 365 Apps for Enterprise. Now I'm going to give you a moment. Open up Word on your machine or Outlook or whatever you want to open. Go into File and down to Account. And then I want you to tell me, some of you come off mute and tell me what yours actually says.
Mine says the same, subscription product.
Okay, so who said that, sorry?
Carmel.
Okay, great, Carmel. So you've got the right version already installed. Fantastic.
Mine says Microsoft Office Professional Plus 2019.
Okay, so you're stuck in 2018. No worries. No judgments though, Stacey. I'm going to show you how to install the other one, all right?
It's my school computer.
Mine says the same as Stacey's, but 2016.
2016, which was released in 2015. So that's a 6-year-old version of Office. God help you.
My personal computer though, not my school one.
Oh, I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you.
I've got my iPad here, I can try that.
No, it won't be on your iPad. Anybody else?
Yeah, we've got 3 in the same school. We've got 3 different versions. We've got Office 365 Pro Plus 2019, and the Enterprise one.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that in itself has issues, right? So when you're working with students or you're trying to work, collaboratively, everyone's got different versions, etc. You can see how that would be an issue as well. Good. Okay. So what we want it to say is we want it to say subscription product, and then underneath it could say Microsoft 365 apps, or it could say Microsoft Pro Plus, right? Not Professional Plus 2019. It might say Pro Plus. That's fine, but it must say subscription product. That's the key. All right. It must say subscription product. We don't want it to have a date. We want it to say subscription product. All right. So how do we get these versions onto our machine? What we do, and you can come along and play along with me now as well, is we're going to go to www.office.com. All right, so open up your browser, your favorite browser. Please don't tell me that you're using Internet Explorer. Please be using Edge or Chrome. All right, maybe even a little bit of Firefox if you want, but please be using Edge, Chrome, but certainly not Internet Explorer. All right, and if you don't know how to do that, then later on ask me, and you can, or even just open up your favorite search engine and look to download Edge or download Chrome. But we're going to go to office.com. I'm going to open up one as well. Okay, so when we come into office.com, can you see over here, you can switch back to my screen where it says, there's a little button here that says install Office. Now, boys and girls, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Do not do this now, because you are going to then start installing software and then you're not going to be able to follow along with the rest of what we're doing today. Please look at the break to do this, or even lunchtime, or even, you know, later tonight. All right. But when we're on this start page, there's a little button here that says install Office. We click it once and then we click it a second time, which I'm not going to do. And that will install, it'll open up an installer, and you know, follow the bouncing ball. Once I said that and someone said, I don't see a bouncing ball. I said, oh, it's a metaphor. Follow the instructions and install the latest, greatest version of Office. Now, if you hit, there's a couple of snags you might hit. One is your IT person may not trust you in terms of the amount of software that you can put on the machine, and you may need an admin code. So go and see your IT person and get the admin code and put it in. Another one is that you might hit an issue where it says there's a conflict. If you hit the conflict, you need to remove your current, uninstall your current version of Office, and then go through this process. But for most of us, we'll just be able to click on Install Office, click on Office 365 apps, and it will overwrite the latest, greatest version of Office onto our machine. Now, there's a Twilight Zone episode where this guy has this it's a time travel one. He has this experience, and he sees himself at the beginning of the episode, he sees himself in the past, and at the very end of the episode, he meets himself and he sees himself in the future. Why do I bring that up? Because I'm a cyber geek. That's partly it, but also to say today, when we're going through some of this stuff, you're going to say, mine's not doing that. And I want you to remember, come back in time when I said the reason why is because you're using a different version of Office. All right. So there's going to be times today where I'm going to show you things. You're going to say, excuse me, Troy, mine's not doing it. Exactly. You need to upgrade and install. All right. Does that make sense? So that's about $200 worth of software that the department has paid for you that you didn't know you had. So you can take that home and put it on your Mac. You can take it home and put it on your PC. Now, if you've got an iPhone, an iPad, an Android phone, those apps are downloadable for free anyway. So you can download Office for your iPhone, your iPad, and these kinds of things, and your Android devices. Those are free anyway, and you can sign in with your school, with your LearnLink or your education email addresses, and that's cool. But if you want the hardcore software for PC or Mac, this is how you do it. So remembering what we do is we get on the device that we want to install to. We come to office.com, we sign in with our school ID, and then we install Office. Now, if you're doing this for a friend, sorry, not a friend, if you're doing this for someone that lives at your house or a family member, and that's the criteria for being able to put it on their machine, and you know, if you want to put it on grandma's machine, that's fine. Make sure that you're on her device, sign in to this page, install the software, and then sign out of the web page. That's fine. You're not giving her access. You're not giving grandma access to all your school documents. All right. Does that make sense? So there you go, $200 worth of software. Anybody want to come off mute, make a comment, ask a question?
Yes, this is Lorena. I'm trying to set it up on my mum's laptop now. and it comes up with, you know, the options, payment options to purchase it. Is that because I haven't signed into mine? And like, do I need to, as you were saying, sign into my own account? And even when she downloads it, she will then have like, it won't be in my account. Like, I sort of don't get how.
Sure. So yes. So the reason why it's taking.
Yeah,
so the reason why it's taking you to payment is because, as I said, you need to sign into office.com with your school ID first and then try and download, okay? Then what happens is when you install that software, you will remain as the license to the software, okay? So that will continue. So there will be, you know, a version of you as an account on that software, but she can also put in her own, right? But she can't go into your documents and files from that software. When you leave the department and your account is closed down, the software will stop working on her machine.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Someone says, David says, I was on the understanding that students could not install Office to parents' devices for sole parent use. Not that I'm aware of, David. As far as what we allow, it's available to family members and people that live in the same house. Okay. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, so remember it's office.com and then you click on that little install Office button and Bob's your uncle. Okay, now I'm going to invite you to speak again. So Chatty Bunch, I'm going to need you to have a bit of a say here. We want to talk about what the cloud is and how the cloud works. All right, so I'd really like you to come off mute and talk to me about what is the cloud and how does it work. You don't have to give me a full definition, just tell me a partial, you know, oh, look, I know it does this, or I know it does that, or I've heard it does this, I've heard it does that. So let's have a bit of a chat, shall we? Go for it, Shauna. You're on two sounds.
Hold on.
Yeah, someone needs to turn.
Oh, no. I'm good. Can you hear me? My understanding of the cloud is it's like a storage space, and that's where I save all of my work, and I can sort of access it from any point. Like I can save work on the cloud at home and then at school, and then go home on my computer and access the cloud from there and sort of continue doing work that way, or my phone or something like that. So for me, it's sort of like a place where I save work or anything and then access it from any point. That's my.
Very good, love it.
Okay.
Very good.
Got there.
But it's a piece. Who else wants to add to that? So she said it's storage and it's accessibility from anywhere that she's got the internet. What else is the cloud, or what else can the cloud do? Yeah, please come off mute.
I think you can also share it with other people.
Yeah, good. Exactly. So collaboration. Yep. And if you have a look at this graphic, that's what's happening here, right? So they're actually able to connect with each other through the cloud. Good. Someone else? Come on. Now put yourself in my position. Imagine if you had a class of teenagers and they were doing this to you. Come on, guys. Tell me what else the cloud is and what it does. Mitchum, you're talking to each other. Come off mute and tell us what you're saying.
I was going to say, I don't really understand how the cloud works. So I think I use it, but I don't really quite know how I use it.
Good. 10 points to you, Stacey. I appreciate it.
You know,
sorry, we were just talking about, I'm sorry, Shauna. No feedback this time, sorry. We were just talking about the difference between the formatting within the online version, obviously going from one computer to the next and working. If you don't have Office installed on your home machine and you're working purely in the browser option, a lot of your formatting, whether it's a Word doc or a PowerPoint, can be sort of skewed. So that was the one thing we were just discussing. But
I suppose as well, just going off of the image and how I might use some of these programs in the class, like Teams or shared documents where students can access the same document and edit the same document at the same time. It's almost like a digital team. That's how we we use a lot of the Teams as faculty. We haven't really started using it too much in the classrooms, apart from Simon, you're a bit of a whiz. But we do use a lot of the cloud for collaborative aspects, I suppose.
I think the question was about what is the cloud. I think the way that I explain it to students when I'm teaching digital tech is that it's just it's a off-site server which stores all of your information so that you're not relying on your laptop. So if your laptop dies, you don't lose all your work. It's all sitting off your laptop. So that's a bit of a security blanket as far as protecting your work and your information. So
yeah.
Very good. Yes. Like it.
I had a question around how much storage it will hold for you. Is it unlimited, or is it like a hard drive where you've got X amount of storage to take up?
Yeah, we will do a deeper dive into this later, Stacey, but as an individual, it's limited, but the department itself will, no one's going to ever hit the end, right? So when we're looking at our personal OneDrive space, which will make a little bit more sense later on, if you don't know what OneDrive is, excuse me, we get 5 terabyte of storage each. And if you don't know, the official way of measuring that is a shitload of Game of Thrones. All right, so it's a lot of space. But the department, they've got combined space. No one's ever going to hit the end of that. It's a good question. All right, anyone else before we move on? Okay, so a couple of things that were said there were great. So Microsoft 365 is a cloud service, right? And Stacey, hopefully this is going to help you make some sense of this. It's a cloud service. Now, Google have their cloud service, Apple have their cloud service, Dropbox have theirs, Amazon Web Services. There's a whole heap of different people that offer cloud services, all right? What the cloud is, in essence, is large data centers or warehouses full of computers, full of computer servers, right? Which is what, sorry, I forgot your name from Mitchum, was telling us before, right? They're basically an offsite server. So you know how at the moment, in your school, maybe you've once upon a time opened up the door and there's just this room full of flashing lights and computers and there's an aircon on and it's keeping it nice and cold. That's your shared drive, your T drive or your V drive or your W drive, whatever you call it in your school. What Microsoft have done is we've taken that offsite and we put it into these large warehouses. And so instead of needing it on site, we do it for you. Okay, and so it's large warehouses full of these computers. We have 2 in Australia that you use. One is in Sydney and one is in Melbourne. So we have a data center in Sydney and a data center in Melbourne. So, obviously people say, what happens if the terrorists blow up one? Well, we've got the other one. All right. And we've also got offshore offlow, which is overflow, which teachers can, which schools and departments can take advantage of if they want to. But these huge big data centers, we log in through the internet. Doesn't matter where we are in the world. If you're 80s John McEnroe and you are mobile, you can be accessing it through your 4G and your 5G and that kind of thing as well. Numerous devices, whether on a desktop, a laptop, a phone, a tablet, we can be accessing Microsoft 365. Okay. Now we've also got the cloud-based apps, right? So we have software that we don't need to install on our machine. So it's like when you go into Facebook through your browser, you're opening basically a Facebook app through the browser, all right? And that's the cloud. When you pay your electricity bill, what happens is through the browser, you're right, you're going through Chrome, you're going through Edge, and you will connect to their accounting software, which will bring up your account. You will then connect to their point of sale software, which will take your credit card details and pay it, etc. You don't have any of that installed on your machine. It's all installed on these servers somewhere else in the world, all right? So the fact that we have this all done in Australia means that we're governed by Australian data security laws, etc. And that's why, government departments and education departments, etc. prefer to deal with us because it's all local. All right, so if the department wanted to take Microsoft to court, it would all happen in Australia, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's the cloud. It's not in the sky. It's a metaphor, it's an allegory, whatever, or it's a marketing spin that someone created at once upon a time, but it's just you connecting to other people's computers, just like you connect to V Drive and P Drive and Q Drive and all that kind of thing. You're now connecting to 365 in the cloud. All right. The other thing too is, and did I mention 3 copies of your data are backed up in Sydney, 3 copies of your data are backed up in Melbourne. So in other words, 6 times your data is backed up. And the other thing about security, this is far more secure than your shared drive at school. Okay. But the other thing to remember is if the Russians want to hack in and steal your lesson plans, God bless them. All right. We're not suggesting that you put photos of your children and your tax records and all this kind of stuff into your school space. All right. But that being said, #1 hacked organizer or attempted hacked organization in the world is the US government. #2 is Microsoft. So the security level that we are implementing is world standard. So when people say, you know, how secure is this? More secure than you need. Yeah. Any questions or comments before we move on? Nope. Okay. Stacey, does that make you feel better? Stacey Walters, get more about the cloud? Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
all right.
thank you. Makes
So what
sense.
do we get in, oh, someone have a question?
Hi, sorry. Tajinder wants to ask, can other people use files from the cloud?
Yes, definitely. So that's what I think Lorena was saying before, we can collaborate. But unless we open those documents to people, then they can't access them. But remembering that Spring Street in Victoria and Flinders Street in South Australia, there are people with the keys to the kingdom and they can go into your files and they can look at what you're doing. So just keep it as workspace. Don't keep it as anything personal. Listen to those dogs going off. All right. So what do we get? We get OneDrive, which is our personal space. And we will unpack this a little bit after morning tea or maybe even before that. But OneDrive is our personal space. OneDrive, one person. All right. Different to Teams and SharePoint. Teams and SharePoint, it's there in the name. Teams is where we come into things as a team. SharePoint is where we're sharing things. We can share things from our OneDrive, but it's only designed to be done occasionally. We're not going to be building whole school systems out of one person's OneDrive. All right. You get Word in the browser. Okay. If you've used Microsoft 365 apps, you will see that it's very, very similar in the way that it's laid out. If you're using 2016 or another older version, then it's going to be slightly different. But basically, if you know Word, then you'll know Word in the browser. We've got Excel in the browser as well. For what it's worth, when it comes to Word, I don't use Word in the browser much at all. I use the full version. It's what I've always used and it's what I know, and that's fine. And that's my choice. But there are times when I want to collaborate and I want that sense of immediacy that we see, that happens better online than it does down in the full version. So you can go backwards and forwards. But my point is, I don't use Word online much at all. My wife, who is at a school where they collaborate more on planning documents and everything, she's in Word online all the time. But it's your choice. You can choose both. When it comes to Excel, it's the opposite. I'm not the kind of person, I never learned really how to create Excel spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. People send me Excel spreadsheets, I read the data, I will input data, etc. And Excel in the cloud does enough. But when we start looking at what we need for power users, when we start looking at what we need for SACE and VCE, science and maths, Excel in the cloud will not cut it, and neither will Google Sheets. We need to go down to the Mac lab or down to the PC lab, and we need to be using the full version of Excel and PowerPoint. And my son and daughter are at a Google school, and the kids that go, and so they use Chromebooks. And when they go into year 11 and 12, if they're focusing on science and maths and they're trying to use these tools, it's just not good enough. But it's so too is true for Microsoft in the cloud, because that's what I was talking before about, that limitations of the network and limitations of the browser. Excel in the cloud just isn't as powerful as the full version. Sorry about these dogs. Hold on, I'll close this door. Actually, sweetheart. Okay. So, but for what I need, it's good enough, and that's what I use. PowerPoint, okay, so again, it doesn't do everything that I want PowerPoint to do, but it's really good sometimes on the fly to be looking at people's PowerPoint presentations without having to download the whole thing at once. Sometimes they can be gigabytes, right? And so I can just be looking at one page at a time without filling up my machine. But I tend to use more the full version of PowerPoint, to be honest, than I do this one. OneNote, again, the full version of OneNote is going to do much more. But if you're in a school which is a BYOD school, bring your own disaster, where you've got one kid bringing, you know, a high-end Mac, you've got another kid bringing a high-end Surface device, and you've got another kid bringing his father's 2012, you know, Samsung tablet. As long as they've got a browser, we know that they've got the same basic experience. Okay, and that's where OneNote in the browser is actually really good. Again, I tend to use the full version of OneNote. Microsoft Forms. If you don't know if you have not come across Forms, whether that's Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, the big difference between Google Forms and Microsoft Forms, ours starts with M and theirs starts with G. Pretty much the same. Every time there is a release, we're leapfrogging each other. You know, Google does this, later on we do it. We release a feature, later on they do it. It's just, you know, it's the way it is. But the cool thing about Forms, and this is, it's a teacher's best friend, and it is my favorite app in 365, because you can use it for surveys and all that sort of Survey Monkey stuff, which is great, but you can actually use it for assessments. And there's multiple kinds of assessments that it will, you know, multiple choice, true and false, multiple choice single answer, multiple choice multiple answer, short answer. You can upload files, all that kind of stuff. But what's cool about it is it will, if there's a definitive answer, it will auto mark. Did you hear that, teachers? In terms of your marking time, it will auto mark definitive answers, and it will also take all that assessment data that you've collected through that form, and it will pop it into Excel for you. All right, so lots of time saved in marking and lots of time saved in collating that data. We'll see how we go for time. Hopefully I'm going to get you guys to have a bit of a play around with this today. How are we going for time? About 15 minutes. Sway is a presentation tool, and it is a simple presentation tool. You know, when you put kids on PowerPoint, you put them on Prezi, you come back 2 periods later and they're still on slide 1, right? Because, oh, how do we get the font this big? And Sway is a presentation tool. It's a web-based one, and it focuses on the content rather than the actual building of the presentation, rather than the design. And so there's templates and wizards and all kinds of things to make it really, really simple. So it's not instead of PowerPoint all the time, but in some instances, it's definitely the better choice. Teams for Education. I heard some of you are saying that your school is starting to use Teams for staff, which is fantastic. But of course, there's the whole, you know, what are we doing for Teams with students as well? So can I get a show of hands and virtual hands? Who is using Teams amongst the teachers in their school? All right, some of you. Yeah. Okay, cool. Who's using it with students? Okay, some of you. Okay, cool. Good job. All right, so we're going to unpack this today. We're going to spend quite a bit of time in Teams. The dogs at the door. All right, the other thing is Minecraft Education Edition. So coming back to that digital technologies curriculum, but for what it's worth, also the general capability, because we can use Minecraft right across the curriculum. But both departments have bought this for every teacher and every student in their systems. Hold on, I'm going to let my dogs in. Come on, quick. Come on, quick. Come on. We just bought another little puppy. Can I show you Lola? This is Lola. She's a Maltese Shih Tzu. I don't know if you guys can see her. If you click down on my screen at the bottom there on my little video, this is Lola, and yeah, she's gorgeous. Maltese Shih Tzu. And then we've got our other boy. His name's Elvis. These are the kids. My kids are teenagers now, so we have to dote on someone. All right, so coming back, Minecraft Education Edition. You can be teaching coding. You can be teaching external computing, meaning you can be coding inside there and bringing it out into external chipboards and all kinds of stuff that happens in Education Edition. It is the full version of Minecraft, but it's got a whole heap of educational features built in. You can be teaching perimeter, an area. You can be teaching politics and setting up, you know, communities and all kinds of things that can be happening in Minecraft. I promise you, someone who, I'm not a gamer anymore, but the potential for Minecraft in schools, especially in sort of that, you know, P or reception to year 10, is phenomenal. And we've also got things like chemistry and other things built into it as well. We'll see how we go for time, but we'll unpack a little bit of that today. All right, so for our last sort of 13 minutes, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to open up a browser in a moment. I'd like you to go to education.microsoft.com. So it's education.microsoft.com. Please notice that there's no www, all right? So it's just education.microsoft.com. And I'm going to take you in there as well. Hopefully you can see my screen, education.microsoft.com. There it is. And this is the Microsoft Educator Center. All right. Now, the Microsoft Educator Center is our online portal for teacher development. So this is for you, not for the kids. All right. The other thing I want to point out to you is both the South Australian Teacher Registration Board and the VIT will recognise these professional development courses. Okay, because they meet the AITSL standards. So what that means is, especially, and this is more in South Australia than in Victoria, people come to my workshops and they're like, I need a certificate for the TRB. I need a certificate. And they'll go across town to, you know, on holidays because they need to get their hours up and all that kind of thing. This will actually count. Okay, so you can do these courses to meet your PD requirements, right? Just purely from an admin perspective. But hopefully, more than that, you can truly professionally develop. So when we come into the Educator Center, if you haven't already bookmarked it, go ahead and bookmark it. But when we come in, we've got a couple of ribbons across the top. And the first one I want to point out to you is training. And we come into courses. All right. Now in courses, we have anything from 20-minute to 1-hour courses. And so, for example, if we wanted to look up something about Teams, I start to do a search there. And it'll bring up my Teams courses, right? So here's one called Making the Most of Teams in the Classroom. So let's open that one up. It's a 1-hour course, all right? I've got the course objectives. There's videos and text and all kinds of things that are in there. If it sits in training, then it does count as your PD. Now, how do I get it to record what I've done? I must sign in and go ahead and use your personal or your school ID. That's fine. You can use either or, and then it will start to record all the professional development that you do. It'll record the time, it'll record the date. When I say the time allotted, like if it's a 1 hour's worth of PD, and it prints off, it creates a PDF of an audit sheet, which you can present to the TRB if you get audited, God help you, or you can also share that to, you know, your principals and other people in the school. All right, so those are what it looks like there. And again, we come back into courses and we can look for things, right? So let's say I want to look up something about collaboration. So I type in collaboration, hit enter. Here are all my courses around collaboration. Or I might want to look at something that's specifically around a product. So I'll go into Word, okay? And there's stuff that's going to be like reimagining the writing process with Microsoft Education, etc. Not a lot of our stuff is product focused, right? Because we know from an education perspective, we want to give you stuff that you can use and it's going to be beneficial to you. So it's contextual. So yes, there are some courses that will be focused around product, but the majority of them is how to use product focused around pedagogical approaches or this kind of stuff as well. And for that reason, that's why it's recognized by the TRB and by the VIT, because it is pedagogy focused. It's not just, you know, it's not just how to use Excel and we call that professional development. It's genuine educational focused. All right. So that's the training. Now we also have, staying with me, boys and girls, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. When I click up here on training, we've also got what's called learning paths. And learning paths are these training courses grouped into a series of courses, right? So for example, if I wanted to go in here into the Minecraft Education Edition Coding Academy, right? Click on that. So it's 8 hours worth of PD, okay? And it's groups of courses, all right? So those 1 hour courses that we could find under courses, now we've put them together in a linear way, although you can certainly go in and out of them in any order you want, but we've put it in a way that this course, then leads to this course, then leads to this course, then, right? And so it's a good way to, oh, someone's come off mute.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Welcome to the course.
Thanks.
I'll just get you to mute you. Actually, I'll mute you if you like.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. All right, so it's a good way to go through the progress, right, and the process of learning this stuff rather than just thinking what do I do next. All right, so we've got a whole heap of really good courses and really good learning paths. The other thing that we've got is what's called the Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert Program. So we have a number of educator programs. One in particular here, the Microsoft Innovative Educator Programs. We've got student teacher or pre-service teacher education programs, Global Training Partner Program, and the Showcase School Program, which we talked about before. But if we come in here, you'll see that you can become a Microsoft Innovative Educator by just doing any 2 hours on the MEC, right, on the Microsoft Educator Center. So you just do 2 of those courses, you will get that badge. Between you and me, it's not worth much, but you can put it on your CV, you can put it on your LinkedIn profile. Then we've got the next stage, which is called the MIE Trainer program. So this is what people that are doing the e-learning leaders course through the STP, School Transformation Program, they will actually get this qualification, and this is a genuine qualification, all right? So you need to have done the training with us, meet some criteria, and then you get this badge here, and you can start to train people back in your own school. So the idea of this is by bringing people in your school in and doing the e-learning leaders course, they learn how to become trainers. So it's train the trainer, and then that resource gets built out back into your school. And then the last one we've got is what's called the MIE Expert Program, Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert, and that is a select entry process. And I want to really encourage you, especially South Australians, I want to really encourage you to apply, okay? Because we don't have a lot of South Australians in the program, and we need a whole lot more. So what happens is you do this level here. Okay, so you get 2 hours worth. You don't need to do this in advance, but you will do this later in the program. And then you create a video or a SWAY presentation showing what you're doing in your school. Submit that between May and July. And then if you meet the criteria, we'll take you on. You sign a non-disclosure agreement, you meet with developers. It's all very cool and all very fun. And there's, national conferences and international conferences, God help us when they start again. There's competitions all the time, and there's gifts, and there's all kinds of stuff happening. But you start to mix with other people that play in this space, okay? Other people that play in the digital technology space, other people that play in the ICT general capability space across schools and across the world, okay? So I really want to encourage you, even though you may think, oh, I'm just starting this process, we have people that have been doing this for, for 10 and 15 years. We have people that have been doing this for a number of months that come into the program. So we'd really like to invite you to think about this, all right? So how I found that was I came up here to programs, I came down here to the Microsoft Innovative Educator Program, all right? So I'm going to share my screen again because I want to show you a little video. Let's make sure I turn the sound on.
There is a feeling of being valued and understood as an educator.
My vision of education is us learning together.
It's the idea that each day we come, whether you're in the nicest place or the hardest place.
My students benefit from whatever I learn on the global platform. We are able to break the barrier of cultural differences, of language differences, and we are able to reach out to each and everyone out there.
It's super important to bring in the world into our classroom and for us to come out in the world. And there are so many different ways we can do that.
The Microsoft Educator community has really helped to get all of the teachers on board for a common goal.
The MIE program gets you out of your comfort zone.
Every day is a day of learning for me.
We've been friends for long, and finally today I got to meet you face to face. That's right. This is magic.
I hope my students walk away from my classroom being citizens of the world. If you just have devotion, passion, and a bit of creativity.
Come on!
At the end of the day, it is about engagement.
I mean, there are endless possibilities.
Okay, so we're almost at morning tea. I'm going to spotlight myself. All right, guys. So that's it for the morning session, right? So we're gonna break now. It's 11 o'clock here in Victoria, 10:30 where you guys are. We're going to come back in 30 minutes. I'll put a timer up on the screen as well. Can I suggest? If you're really feeling like, you know, there's something you need to do in front of your computer, sure, but take the 30 minutes, all right, and walk away from your device and stretch your legs and eat something or whatever it is you're going to do. Sorry to be all fatherly, but I just want to make sure that you get a proper break. And then when we come back, we're going to start to look at things like collaboration and OneDrive and those kinds of things, and just sort of understanding the basics. I'm going to stop the recording. But I will start it again when we come back.